Princesses who refuse to get married. Did you know that in some royal families, marriage used to be a requirement rather than a choice? But what happens when a princess simply says, "No thanks," to marriage? Today, we're diving into the fascinating world of princesses who challenged tradition and chose their own destiny. We've all heard the classic fairy tales. Princess meets prince, they fall in love, and they live happily ever after. But not all princesses follow that script. In fact, history and stories alike feature strong-willed princesses who refused to marry because they had bigger dreams, different priorities, or just didn't feel the need to follow tradition. But why is this such an interesting and important topic? Because these stories remind us that there are many ways to be happy, and not every princess needs a prince to complete her story. For centuries, princesses were expected to marry for political reasons, forming alliances and securing power for their families. Love, personal choice, those were often afterthoughts. Many princesses were betrothed as children, their futures decided before they even knew what they wanted. But what if a princess didn't want to marry? In many cultures, this was unheard of. Some faced intense pressure from their families, while others were even threatened with losing their royal status. Imagine being told that your worth depended on who you married rather than who you were. Yet, despite these expectations, there have always been princesses who stood their ground. Take Queen Elizabeth I of England, for example. She famously refused to marry, choosing instead to rule her kingdom independently. She declared herself married to England, proving that a woman could lead a nation without a husband by her side. Or consider Princess Merida from Brave, the fiery-haired archer who fought to control her own fate rather than be forced into marriage. Her story resonated with audiences because it challenged the idea that a princess's happiness must come from romance. Then there's Princess Pingyang of China, who wasn't interested in royal matchmaking. She was too busy leading an army to help her father establish the Tang dynasty. Her bravery and leadership made her legendary, and marriage was never her defining feature. One of the most compelling stories is that of Princess Cecilia of Sweden. She was expected to marry to strengthen her family's influence, but she had other plans. Cecilia was more interested in adventure and independence. When her family tried to force her into marriage, she defied them, even attempting to run away. While her story doesn't end in the typical fairy tale way, she left a lasting impression as a woman who dared to challenge expectations. Throughout history and fiction, princesses have shown us that marriage isn't the only path to happiness. Whether ruling nations, chasing adventure, or simply choosing freedom, these princesses prove that a strong woman's story isn't defined by a wedding. Now, I want to hear from you. Which princess story inspires you the most? Do you think more stories should highlight independent princesses? Let's chat in the comments. And if you love stories about strong, trailblazing women, check out my other videos. You won't want to miss them.